Okay guys, and today I'm gonna be giving out some trading rules that you're gonna be following to enter trends and also to bid. I've kind of made a list of around 10, the actually 10 major points that you have to consider before entering any trend. Now, number one, which is actually the most important principle or rule that you shouldn't defy if you're entering a trend is look at where you are. Where is the price? At the price line. You have to use your price line, and once you find that your price line is at the peak of the bar, for example, let me give you an example. For example, this trend here, it made a downtrend bar, a candlestick, and at this point here where the resistance came, this was a peak. Okay, you can call it a bottom. Peaks are for uptrends, then bottoms are for a downtrend. So this is a tip of the bottom. So if you find a trend or prices of the market are at that point, at the tip of a candlestick, please don't enter any trend. Just as a matter of fact, if prices at the peak, they are normally liable to changes and immediate changes that might end up putting you in big losses, and therefore you have to avoid that. So that's rule number one. And rule number two says never enter a trend without looking at the of course the price action or considering the price action. So in the price action, in this case, we mean the nature of the prices at the point where you are. So for example, if you're dealing with a 5-hour interval, let me put some two screens so that you can explain it very well. Okay, Euro USD, Euro, I need Euro USD alone to be able to explain this. For example, if you're working with a bigger interval of about most people use 15 minutes in forex, of about 15 minutes, and of course you have two here. So if what this point means is that never enter trend without considering a price action. Price action is actually an immediate movement in the price regardless of the trend, regardless of where the trend is going. For example, we might be having a downtrend. For example, here we are having a downtrend prevailing, yes, but inside, remember, a trend doesn't move in a straight direction or a straight line. It moves in a sigmoid form, up and down, as it breaks points of resistance from one level to another. You can see the downtrend starts from here, but it moves back and forth in a sigmoid form while breaking points of resistance. If you look at this is a point of resistance. Moving from this point to this point has broken through some layer of resistance, and moving from this point here to this point has broken layer of resistance, and therefore from moving from this point here to probably down one point at this point here in a downtrend, it will have to break this resistance to another level. So this point puts it across that a trend or prices do not move in a straight line or in a one direction. They kind of move in a sigmoid direction, and this is more appreciated if you change your chart type to a line, and you will appreciate this. You will find that the line is moving in kind of a sigmoid. You see this sigmoid form, up and down, up and down, up and down, just like that. Anyways, let's go back to our ash. So that's point number. So if at all you're dealing with 15 minutes and above, these are kind of relatively bigger intervals. Most people use 15. So if you're using a 15-minute interval in forex, before you enter trend, for example, here you had a downtrend prevailing. It actually happened at this point, but before you enter that trend, please check on a 2 minutes. What is it doing exactly? The 2-minute interval. You may find that in 15 minutes you're given an entry point. It actually started at about 22.15 and 15. 22.15 and 15. It was about here. I think about here. Yes, about this point. Yes, between this point. This is where it happened. So if you're given a trend or an entry point of a downtrend, ensure to check on the relatively lower time intervals to see whether they are agreeing with what you're doing, with the trend that you've been given above. If they're not agreeing with it, for example, if you're given a signal of a downtrend in 15 minutes interval, ensure to check on 2-minute interval to make sure that you're being given the same trend. If it is a downtrend, that if you're not being given the same trend, then you have to wait this the 2-minute interval to give you that same trend. So the 2-minute interval in this case is acting as a price action model of this big time interval, 15 minutes. So in other words, we shall be doing a video about how to interchange through time intervals. Actually, most traders lose money because they don't know how to change around and play around with time intervals. They only work in one time interval, and you end up making losses because a lot of changes are happening in those small intervals that are below you or above intervals that are actually above you, and they end up changing the trend all of a sudden, and you don't know why the trend is changing, and you end up making losses. So I'm going to be teaching you in the next video how to play around basic intervals and more intervals, such that you can trend but also monitor the trend or the market prices in different intervals, such that you know where exactly the trend is coming from and where it's going. So for example, if you are in 15-minute interval and you are making your bids in 15-minute interval, make sure if at all you're given an entry point in 15-minute interval, please, before you enter that entry point, check the below intervals. For example, if you're working in 15-minute interval, ensure to check on 2-minute interval or 1-minute interval, and ensure that whatever it's doing, or you have the same entry point that you've been given in 15 minutes. So you must have the same entry point in a relatively lower below interval. So that's it. We can move on to the next principle, which is never enter trends without looking at the spread. So this is very important. This is very important, guys. Now, before entering a trend here, you have kind of look at your spread, because these spreads here normally they display at the bottom here in IQ option. These spreads normally mess up things. You might find that at this point at 0.2, 0.3 is kind of stable for Euro USD, but in some cases, most cases, when you're approaching night time, if it's approaching midnight, you kind of have to leave with trends, because you find yourself in a position where you're going to be making a lot of losses, because the spreads kind of jump and increase at once. They kind of increase at once, and you end up making a lot of big negatives that you're not prepared for. So you have to check on your spreads before entering a trend, and make sure that your spread is very cool, very relatively low and stable, so that it doesn't put you in a lot of losses. Another point is only enter trends where changes or whose changes have happened when you are there in real time, or when it has already when you're there in real time, and if you find that it has just happened or it has already happened, please ignore the trend. So this is self-explanatory. For example, you come at this point, you find the zigzag has already come, don't enter the trend. The trend, you must enter trend whose changes have happened on your watch. So if you find that probably a couple of hours after the changes have happened, please don't enter that trend. You're most probably, or gonna be making losses. So don't enter that trend. You're gonna be making losses. You don't know where the trend is going. The changes have already happened. You can anticipate exactly where you're going, and whether there is a change or whether there is an anticipated change in future or something like that. So at this point, I can at least monitor the net volume, that it is crossing the line to the above section, and therefore a more power of an uptrend is coming up. So this change here has happened when I'm in this video. I'm actually watching it happening, and therefore I can enter it. But if it happens and you find that, for example, this change here has already happened, you can just follow the change that has already happened. So the point is so clear. Let's move on to the next point. Don't worry about the profits that I'm making this video. I'm actually making a lot of profits with this strategy. I'll be giving out the strategy. You can watch my previous videos to see as I'm setting up the strategy. I'll be explaining it more, and it's actually a free strategy for you guys. So don't worry about the profits. I'll be making a lot of them in this video as we explain more points on what to do or the rules to follow when you're trading. Now, the next rule says never trade against a resistance. This is very important too. Now, these are the resistance here. I use the fractal indicator to represent my resistance points. These are resistance. If I told you you're going to be entering a trend and you find that you have a resistance or a formation of a resistance in your way, please don't. For example, this is a resistance that is stopping us from going into any further downtrend. At this point, I expect a good trader not to enter any downtrend, any further downtrend, because there is a resistance that is actually pushing you in a negative uptrend. So don't enter this trend at this point where you have a resistance that is actually supposed to be pushing you in a negative. So you will end up making a lot of losses. Probably if you're lucky, it comes back and gives you profit. But if you're not lucky, because a resistance essentially represents or anticipates a change in trend. So if you see a resistance and you still go ahead and enter that trend, for example, if it is a downtrend and you get a resistance here, probably it's preventing you from any further downtrend, and you go ahead and enter downtrend, you are risking, because this resistance is actually a symbol to tell you that probably there could be a change in a trend. So these are symbols, indicators to show you that there could be a change in trend, and you end up making profits. And we don't want that to happen to you. That's why we're in this video, to avoid that. Okay, so let's look at the next point, the next rule. And never enter trend without a support from the big system or the backup or the big boys. Now, the big boys, I mean, if you're working in 15 minutes, make sure you have probably 30 minutes being monitored on the same chart, probably on site. Make sure you monitor this guy, because you might enter trend here that is not agreeing with this big guy, and you will end up making a lot of losses. So make sure you always have a bigger interval ahead of you that is actually giving you a go ahead into that trend that you're entering. So quite simple. I'll be explaining more about these rules, trading rules. Don't worry, today I'm just giving an overview. The next rule says always follow the infiltration. Now, what I mean by the infiltration is, look at this. The infiltration started from here, the green infiltration, into an uptrend. Now, this infiltration is a clear infiltration. It moved from tier 1 to the next level, and we are expecting that now it's moving to third level. Probably the next bars here will all be green. Green, green, green. 3 tires, green, green, green. It's what we're waiting for. This is the movement of the infiltration. The infiltration is now moving towards an uptrend. So that's what we call an infiltration in the awesome oscillator. So never trade against an infiltration. This is an upcoming infiltration, is actually moving into an uptrend. So it's not good, it's not advisable to enter a downtrend at this point. If you're to make a mistake, or if you must trade, then you must enter an uptrend, because the infiltration is turning towards an uptrend. Okay, so those are points for today. I'll be continuing more with more points, with more rules in the next video. Probably you have subscribed for the next video, and also I'll be putting up this PDF for free for you guys to read these rules, such that you don't make mistakes and make losses. So for today, let's stop here in this video. We shall be proceeding with these rules. There are still very many. I have to give you all this in the next video. Ensure to subscribe, like the video, share, and hit the notification button, such that you get all the alerts, all the incoming notifications about the new being uploaded videos. I'll see you in the next video as we continue on the rules, or the trading rules that you must follow to avoid making losses. Bye for now.